Hey, good evening, everybody. Sorry for that. A little stutter step. Why don't we start by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have no announcements, so from here we're going to adopt an agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt an agenda? Andrea's first, Mary Helen is second. All in favor? Thank you. From here we're going to go on to comments and reports. This is a business session, open session to the public. It's an opportunity for residents to address the Board of Education. The board reminds residents that the public comment portion of the meeting is only one item on a long agenda. We therefore ask that each speaker be as succinct as possible and that remarks be limited to 2 to 3 minutes in an effort to ensure that the widest number of community viewpoints are heard. The board asks members of groups or the public to withhold comment if their viewpoints have already been presented. We would also expect that residents speak in a respectful and courteous manner so as to model proper civility and decorum for our students. Pursuant to Board Policy 3220, board members will not address specific comments from the public or answer questions regarding a specific staff member, student, as it is confidential. District residents may also send questions, comments via boe@shenschools.org. All questions, comments coming to the Office of Public Information are shared with the board and the superintendent. Policy questions, concerns are typically addressed by the superintendent and or designee. Please provide your name and address in the event we will need follow-up. From here, I'm going to let the students go first. So Eric, if you want to start, and then we'll do Senate.
Okay. So students right now are just meeting with their counselors for course recommendations, and then they'll be solidified in around March. And then next week is February recess.
Really short and succinct. Senate?
So, hello. Can't tell if it's on. So on last Saturday, which was just a few days ago, we had the snowball dance. It was a very good success. We had around 256 attendees, which honestly wasn't as much as I thought it'd be, but it is what it is. The student band was very much liked. People really liked that. The Senate has been asked to lead coffee talks, so that's another thing we'll be working on. A coffee talk is basically where students will be able to meet with administrators and other faculty about questions that they have. So it's for students who are nervous to meet like one-on-one, and so they can have more confidence to speak out.
That's good stuff.
Another thing that the Senate is doing is gearing up for our elections. Although it's February, we have our elections in April, and we don't meet every single Monday. So right now we have our contenders of who wants to run, and the present officers are meeting with the not wannabe officers, but the people who want to be officers, and sharing a little bit about our jobs. We have also a non-Senate thing, but the musical is really gearing up. It's Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812, and the musical this year is on March 5th, 6th, and 7th, and tickets are available online, so that's like another part of the student community. That's all.
Thank you. All right, we'll go into board comments. Where would you like to start?
Thanks. I wanted to say, and I'm sure Naomi and Carla will echo this, it was really awesome to be able to speak with our elected officials. A couple of days, gosh, it was yesterday. It feels like 3 days have elapsed since yesterday morning. But we met with Senator Tedesco and Congresswoman Walsh and Warner, and they were interested in what we had to say. Congresswoman Walsh especially was very supportive of some of our proposals, which I think is fantastic. And overall, it's just nice to know that they're listening to their constituents and they take time for us. And it was really very enjoyable. Thank you. And also I have to say, my daughter really enjoyed the snowball dance, so we may have gotten not that many people, but the ones that attended really liked it. So thank you.
Just to dovetail off of what Petra said,
Yeah, no, no, it's okay.
I wanted just to thank Dr. Wilson Turner for inviting us to come, giving us the invitation. And she was wonderful in giving a very clear, very specific list of items that we're very concerned about. And it was very well received, and the legislators were very, very cordial to us and listened and wrote things down. And it wasn't their assistants that did that, they did them themselves. So I was really happy about that. So thank you.
Patrice, any comments?
I don't.
Andrea?
I'll just add that Lauren McKenna was also with us. It was a great team. Sorry, I just wanted to add and to say that I felt that you articulated all the issues very well. But for me personally, I learned something because you were adding all that underlying detail, supporting evidence to describe the situation that Shen is currently facing. So that was really good for me as a board member. And the only other thing I wanted to share is that the audit committee was moved, it bounced around a lot. It was originally at the beginning of February. I think it was actually in January, but now it's next week. And it's February 18th, and I just wanted to mention this because it is open to the public, from 3:30 to 4:45 in the district office finance conference room. And that is all from the comments. Thank you.
I just wanted to send some positive vibes to Coach Chad Hagner, who unfortunately had a bit of a snowboarding accident almost a week and a half ago. So he's holed up at home, and we're he's a beloved physical education teacher at Scano, a coach for volleyball and head coach for lacrosse. So we're all wishing the best for him for a speedy recovery.
Oh, wow. I'm going to save my comments for the good of the order. Okay, from here we'll go into public comments. Is there anybody from the public that would like to come up? Seeing none, go right into the agenda. So I'm first out with a superintendent search update. So just to note, I mean, we've kept everybody informed, the public informed every step of our way here. We are closing in. We are at almost to the end of this process. We will go into executive committee tonight to meet with our legal team over a contract. So more to come on that, but we're pretty excited. I think we've got to meet out at BOCES to have interviews with candidates. So it's been a great adventure, and it's been a great experience, something that, this board or any board doesn't get to do too often. So none of us take it very lightly. And so more to come on this, like I said, and we'll be announcing we're sticking to our timeline, so by March, we will be announcing our new superintendent. Okay. Turning it to you.
Good evening. So just brief comments because we have some budget presentations this evening that will take up the majority of our time. I do also want to extend my thanks to Ms. McKenna and our 3 board members who were able to drive down and navigate parking and walking and finding our way to the legislative office building for our meetings. And I would 100% echo how gracious our representatives were with their time and genuine interest in the topics that we brought forward, and a commitment to really support our efforts, which I think speaks to how well Shen is viewed in terms of how we maximize the funds that we receive and the policies that we are expected to navigate, and just grateful to be able to continue that legacy. I also wanted to just mention, this place never sleeps, in case anybody was wondering. There is always something going on here, and so many things that happen for our community. And it is very difficult to look at weather and say that we're not going to be able to open to some of the activities that have been planned. So I just want to say thank you to our partners who continue to work with us through this very busy winter, we try to reschedule things as much as possible. I will, each time I have the opportunity, say a special thank you to our Director of Operations, our Director of Facilities, our grounds crew, our security team, who are here all the time, making sure that our buildings are able to operate and open. We couldn't do it without them. And I also do want to give a special shout out to Color Guard. So I spent Saturday, not last Saturday, it all kinds of blurs together, right? But 2 Saturdays ago, right? That seems like a lifetime ago. I started out with first Lego League at the middle school at their qualifier. Everybody all excited, so I was grateful to give a few words there. And then was able to spend some time at Color Guard. It just speaks to all the different opportunities that are happening on our campus at any given point in time. And so I want to thank both the board, our community, and our staff for all the things they do to support that. And I use those comments really to leverage our way into the budget conversation, because you think of budget, you think of numbers, right? You think of what is that final number going to be. And tonight you will not get final numbers. Tonight you will get framework and process. You will get some projections from Ms. Kathy Wetmore-Chase, which is what we typically do at this point in the year, just so you have a sense of how our planning works and how we ultimately get to that final number as we make our way through March and April and decide on a budget that the voters will be able to approve. So our first presentation has been called Budget 101. I'll think of a different name, I think, in the future, but it does accurately capture what the intent of the presentation is. It really is to give both the board and the community a foundation in what goes into building a budget, almost that background information. And for me, it was particularly interesting because I've always been on the other side of that development. I have told what I wanted to spend because I've been on the programmatic side as deputy superintendent and assistant superintendent. So I really looked instructionally at what we've needed and made those recommendations. This time I'm able to combine that experience of looking instructionally at what we need with what the framework is for what we build out for a budget and what we're able to sustain. So in the first presentation, we'll take you through the framework, and then Ms. Wetmore-Chase will come up and provide our mid-year projections, our mid-year expenditures, and then our projections and forecasts for the next 3 years. You'll hear multiple times over the course of the presentation, this is not a budget for 1 year. When we budget, we are thinking long-term about what the implications are about the decisions that we make today and what we'll be able to sustain in the future. And then we'll circle back and I will close out with basically a framework of the budget presentation you're going to see evolve over the course of the next few weeks as we continue to crunch numbers, refine our projections, and refine what we're going to be able to move forward to present to you a final budget. So now I'm going to turn a little. So a driving force in this is to reinforce what we value, and that is what our budget is expected to do. Our budget is probably the single largest driver of saying to our community, this is what we value, and so it's intentional what we're able to map out in this space. So we start with just the different types of funds. What people are most familiar with are general funds, because that is what we bring out to the public to vote on. And that is a combination of our state aid and what our voters approve for us to levy. Then we have our school lunch fund, which is a self-sustaining fund that allows us to both hire staff and provide meals to our students every single day. And it remains self-sustaining even with the addition of free and reduced lunch. We have our debt service funds. This is where we navigate our capital borrowing for any major project that we're doing through our bonds and our bands. And then we have our special aid funds. Think of our federal grants, like our title grants, our 611 and 619 grants for special education, grants that we've applied for, like RECOVs, are considered special aid funds, and they are separate from our general funds. However, we are very intentional in our district in executing those funds with the same austerity that we execute our general funds. We want to make sure they're maximized and used for intentional purposes and continue to be used for things that we're able to sustain. Then we have our capital reserve funds. This should be familiar because last year we had our voters approve to both open and establish a capital reserve fund and to be able to use that capital reserve fund. This is what we use to continue our ongoing facilities projects. And right now, as you all remember, we're in the middle of an $85 million capital project in addition to a TRIA. And then we'll talk actually a bit about reserve funds this evening between myself and Ms. Wetmore-Chase. We have 2 categories that we lump these into: our appropriated fund balance, which have specific reserves that we put money into. Last year, again, for your reference, we used money from our ERS and TRS reserves, which are our benefit reserves. And these are used to offset unexpected increases in costs so that we don't impact our programming and are able to have sustainable program over time. It is not our intent to use our fund balances, appropriated or unappropriated, to be a regular feature of how we balance a budget, because you cannot sustain programming by using what we call your savings account. We want to make sure that we're planful in what we put forward. We'll talk again tonight about the unappropriated fund balance. There is a maximum percentage that we are allowed to allocate there, and so we look to maximize that each and every year. And then whenever we use our reserve funds, we look at opportunities to use funds to replace those at the end of the year based on how we have expended our budget in that year. So you're going to see this slide twice, and that's done intentionally, and this is the manageable categorization. This slide shows the general percentages that our spending falls into. So if you look at our budget, and pretty much if you look at any budget in our state, these are the categories that should break out in roughly these percentages, give or take a percentage. You'll notice that the majority of our budget, and the majority of every school budget, goes to staff salaries and to benefits. It is broken out both for instructional salaries, administrative salaries, non-instructional salaries, and then benefits at 26.25%. If you total those together, it's about 82% of the budget. The remaining items are the tools that we really need to be able to execute our programming each and every day. And so these manageable categorizations allow us to take both what I call an aggregated look at what our budget is and how it breaks out, and then the next few slides show you how we are able to disaggregate that information to have an understanding of where we're spending in each categories by building, by department, and by different function and object codes. So when we are looking at budgets in our individual departments, as a high school principal, as a deputy superintendent, there are codes that we are assigned to manage that contribute to the overall total of the budget. And so here is just a brief snapshot of what a budget code would look like. It starts with a it starts with a fund code, which is an A fund, which means it's a general fund code. The special aid funds have a different code that go in front of that one. Then our function codes tell you what area it's supporting. So general supports instructional transportation. You'll see all the function codes as we go through the next few slides. Then the object codes talks about what we are purchasing in that particular area. Is it supplies? Is it salaries? Materials, equipment. They will all have their own object code. Then the next number will tell you the location that is the spending is happening. Is it happening at the high school? Is it happening at the transportation department? And so again, you can drill down and disaggregate this data by department, by building, and by what resources are being purchased. And the last code is a program code. So the next few slides, I'm not going to read every uniform account code number to you, but it is just to give you a picture, and really just looking at the description of each function code, you have a general sense of where that code may live in our organization, who may manage it, and at the same time, you have a sense of where multiple departments may need to touch a code and manage it collectively together. So this is what would qualify as general supports. That would cross many areas, and you see your Board of Education code exists there, as well as everything down to security of plant, data processing, mailing and printing, which many departments touch and have to handle. Instruction codes are the ones that are typically managed out of the Deputy Superintendent's office, but also live in some of our school buildings. And so we then look at, again, all of those different levels, the object code, as well as the location and the department in which it's impacting. And so you see we have a lot of instruction codes, as it's our primary function of our work. Transportation has its own codes, building and grounds, contract services, and benefits are some of the major codes that we look at. And again, our purpose is to be able to both aggregate our budget spending and disaggregate it down to the number as to what we're actually spending. And so one of the ways that the board is able to see this, and the public, each and every month at our study session, is through the treasurer's report. You'll see those exact budget codes, and you'll see how they're currently being expended at this point in the year. And you will also see these manageable categorizations disaggregated in our budget book. You'll see a copy of our last year's presentation, as well as what we budgeted for and anticipated spending for this school year. And so that's the real-time application of that for the public. The real-time application of that for us internally, like I mentioned, is that each manager is managing each of their codes. So now that we have that framework for how our budget is laid out in terms of code, we then have a process that we're following, and that involves assessing multiple scenarios. And so these are terms that I'm leaving because I think they are terms that have been used before, and I think my job is to make sure I bridge those terms in layman's terms. So when we look at program preservation, that's our mantra in this system. We want children to have a continually sustainable experience in our system. We do not want huge dips, and we do not want huge peaks that we're not able to sustain over time. We want to ensure students what their experience will be. Points of diminishing marginal returns, we ask our leaders to take a very close look at what currently exists in our system, whether it is still gaining or demonstrating the impact that we want it to, and if not, how would we repurpose or reallocate those funds to maximize them? And that's what you take away from points of diminishing marginal returns. And then structural financial deficit is something that has been talked about. Really, I think even more so post-COVID, as districts plan to come off their COVID funds, as districts look at the financial challenges that we're facing and increasing costs in particular areas. And so we plan for our structural financial deficit, or to avoid a structural financial deficit, through our forecasting. And that is why when I say we're not planning a budget for 26-27, or not just planning a budget for 26-27, we're planning a budget that will drive the next 3 to 5 years of our system, and really far beyond that, because every decision we make will have financial implications. And thus, we take a multi-year approach. We look at the implications of foundation aid, which you'll see this year remain relatively flat, and our federal funds, which last year we were all very nervous about and planned very intentionally about how we would back those up in our general fund budget. This year, we know recently the federal government came out and said that those funding sources will be sustained. However, we do see fluctuations in our title funds and our 611, 619 grants from year to year, and so we have to plan for those as well. And then our key operational decision units do not shift majorly from year to year. Our goal is always equity and outcomes, to really be thinking intentionally about what every student needs in our system and how our budget is able to support that. And that's for every student, and inclusive of our special education students, AIS, ENL, and students who need additional interventions and support to experience success in our system. Program enhancements, we are always looking through the lens of the Shen Learning Framework, which I'll spend some time in the second presentation. That undergirds every decision that we make, because you'll see in that framework our students are at our center, and it's about what experience we're creating for them. Mental health and wellness is central to equitable outcomes for students. I think I've often said that students cannot access learning if they are not available for learning. And that is what mental health supports do for students. We make sure that we are attending to the whole child to ensure that they are able to access their learning. Professional development will always remain a focus for an organization that is a teaching and learning organization. This is about how we ensure that all of our staff in both our academic and operational areas are able to continue to grow in their practice and meet the diverse needs of the students and ever-changing needs of our students and departments as we make our way through each year. We are really intentional about personnel management, and so we maximize the breakage that we receive for retirements. We look very closely at vacancies and whether they are things that we need to replace or repurpose. And we look to look for savings where attrition is possible and a position does not need to be replaced. Again, we leverage our grants. Ms. McKenna's office is well known for navigating a grant process where we meet twice a year, and we go line by line through our title grants, our special education grants, our RECOV grant, our learning technologies grant, and we look at what the expenditures are and what our balances are at that point in the year and how they're going to be maximized by the end of the year. We also look very closely at what are called carryover funds, funds that weren't able to be maximized in the previous year, to make sure that those are fully leveraged as well. And so it's about the responsible management of all the funds that are available to us regardless of the source. So there's a lot of work that happens in the background, and I think a lot of people think that is solely the work of Kathy Wetmore Chase and her department, but is really the work of every leader in our organization, and for the most part, our staff in our organization, in terms of thinking really intentionally about what is needed. However, Kathy is working diligently in the background in partnership with our HR department to look at scattergrams and what our staffing numbers look like, where we may have some potential retirements, and to try to project out those retirements. Things like having conversations about retirement incentives that may drive what those numbers look like. At the same time, Ms. McKenna is working very closely with our building leaders, our academic administrators, to look at enrollment and scheduling to make sure that we are maximizing our class sections at a productive level, and we're making determinations that are driven based on data and looking at what numbers look like and projecting those numbers out. We look at our outcomes and data analysis. We look at much more than a universal screener. That's one of the data points that we're able to utilize to determine what student need is. We work again closely with our building leaders and our academic administrators to determine what are the student needs in each area, and what do we need to put in place as a system to support those students. And it's not always a budget implication that's in addition to the budget, but going back to that reallocation and maximizing of resources to make sure that we're not just continuing practices that we've always had, but always managing the best practices. Our cost trends, we just settled 2 collective bargaining agreements at the end of last year with STA and midway through the beginning of this year with CSEA, and those are cost drivers. It's not just that 1 year that we do the contract settlement, it's looking at the next 3 to 4 years that that contract was agreed to and seeing what the implications are. You're gonna hear a lot about health insurance and pensions costs. They are one of the main drivers in our budget increases at this point in time. And I will be honest and say that they are oftentimes unpredictable drivers. In talking with my superintendent colleagues, at recent meetings about budget, it's one of the factors that they have to weigh the most, and it's different from every district what their insurance cost implications are going to be. And then we also look at our revenue trends, what we've been able to levy and what we can anticipate in terms of assessed values and the rates that drive that. We look at our state aid, both foundation and expense-driven categories. Our expense-driven categories are those things where we have to spend money first and then being reimbursed. So think about our transportation aid, our BOCES aid, things of that nature. And then, of course, we look at how we need to leverage or utilize our reserves and fund balance in a way that is fiscally responsible and sustainable over a period of time. So I'm going to shift in a moment to Ms. Kathy Wetmore Chase, who's going to take us through our mid-year projection, where she's taken a snapshot in time of where we are right now with our current year's budget and how we're going to be able to maximize funds from now until the end of the school year to help plan for what our next year's budget will be. And in addition, she will also project out the next 3 years and what our financial decisions and implications will be. But before she comes up, it's time for me to share our theme for the year. And I don't know if you can appreciate how challenging, sorry Kathy, but I'm glad you're ready, how challenging it is to really think through a theme that captures what we know is going to be coming for the next year. And so I thought it was appropriate to use opening the doors, because we are going to open doors to a brand new building for our youngest learners. But we're not opening doors just for a trio. We are opening doors every single day for our students to ensure that they are able to take advantage of tomorrow's opportunities. And so it continues on that same theme really from this year. Everything we do today is about what gets to happen tomorrow for our students. And so now I will turn it over to Kathy, unless there are any questions before we move forward.
Good evening. I wasn't sure which one you were going to show first.
So you want to start with?
I was going to say I've provided you both data and narrative. They go together, obviously. And as Cecily had mentioned, you know, the bulk of our budget is salaries and benefits. So that drives the majority of our budgeting expenses. And every year we talk about what drove our savings or excesses in the budget. And for salaries, I referenced several data points in regard to retirements, resignations, leaves of absence, new hires, and you can see there's a lot of activity under all of those things within the narrative. As we also said, we try to take advantage of attrition and we evaluate whether we need to replace that position or not. Maybe we don't replace it in the same way. So that results in, I'll say, periods where we may not have somebody in the position in a vacancy, so we end up with some breakage, some savings due to short-term vacancies while we decide. We have a large substitute population, so we try to keep everybody fully staffed in the meantime. And with the salaries, obviously that drives the benefits. And this year, we're showing health insurance with quite a bit of savings, 2.2 million. I should mention we budgeted around 14 to 15% based on what our actuarial estimates were from our broker. We ended up with an increase for January 1st of this year of 11.82%. I'm sorry, last year, 11.82%. So we will see some savings, but I should also mention, if you remember last year, we decided to self-fund our health insurance. So we're no longer paying, I'll say, a premium that's determined by the carrier. We are paying premiums based on what our experience is. And that is also leading to some of our savings for this year. In addition, health insurance, our brokers have negotiated tremendous rebates for us in our prescription program. That seems to be getting better and better each year. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to continue to manage those costs and keep them more controlled as opposed to just spinning out of control like most companies' health insurance costs are these days. And along with health insurance, there's other defined benefits that we have to pay. Employees' retirement system, teachers' retirement system, Social Security, those are all based on salaries. So when our salaries are up or down, our benefits will be up and down as well. Equipment, is a high commodity. We always try to spend down to the dollar if possible. Contractual savings, just through the normal course, there's quite a number of line items. I just tried to highlight some of the larger ones so that you can see where some of the savings are coming from. Nothing in particular, I would say, for most of these items. It's just a variety of codes that we're saving money in. The revenue budget, we're expecting 101.05%. I say that our real property taxes are what they are. We think we're gonna see pretty much close to what we estimated. Our state aid, as we said, a lot of those are expenditure driven. So while we try to estimate, what's going to be calculated in the state runs, sometimes timing might be off a bit. This year we're seeing excess in BOCES aid and building aid in particular. We do have some shortfalls, but in the end, we're seeing about 1.9 million in excess, which we always like to see. Interest income, we expect to be right on the money. I know that's been up and down. We've tried to be conservative. We tried to estimate a little more closely this year. I think we're going to be right on the money there. Federal revenue, we don't get a lot of that, but there is some, where we have some excess. Another revenue, again, the normal course, I'll say. We do have 59,000 in jewel funds though, which is a good thing. If you remember that lawsuit that's been going on for a couple of years.
That was this year?
Pardon me?
They paid that out this year? I didn't realize they had paid out this year, so.
We did get 59,000 this year. We got some in prior years too, but we got,
Right.
I think it was our last payout.
This is okay.
I thought the last time was our last payout.
Oh.
We'll take it. And then getting down to the estimated fund balance, you take your revenue and minus your expenditures. We have about an operational surplus of $8.2 million. Typically, we appropriate 1.5 million of our fund balance for the next year, so we'll continue to do that. We may repeat again the retirement contribution reserve, the TRS reserve, to replenish what we've utilized in our budget for this past year. And then we have a potential contribution to our capital reserve of 4.7 million, and we can utilize some of that savings for our opening expenses for a TRIA. We actually took a very strategic approach this year. We cut off expenses around the end of January, beginning of February, because we need to know exactly where we're gonna be, what we can spend for this next year, what we can't. Certainly, whatever we get a jump start on this year is less we'll have to pay next year. So we're just trying to be very thoughtful as we plan what we're spending capital funds on, what we're spending general funds on, as well as grants and other funding mechanisms. And then we go to our 3-year forecast. I should say, we're estimating our fund balance is gonna be right at that 4% level. I don't think I mentioned that. But then as we go to our 3 to 5 year forecast, we take our mid-year report where we expect that we're going to be for the end of this year, and then we roll that into our 3 to 5 year forecast. So we don't start with this past year's budget, we start with where we think we're gonna be. So kind of right-sizing our starting point. And then we look at the enrollment forecast that we get from Capital Region Planning Commission, which they presented to us in November. And as we look at those, each year is slightly reduced from the year before. You know, it's gonna be difficult to exactly estimate, but based on that, if there's a difference of 25 students or less or more, we add an instructional employee for every 25 students. So again, just to give us a sense about what we might endure as we move forward. And everything else really is driven either by contract or trends. Salaries and benefits, we pretty much know from our contractuals, benefits and union agreements, what we're going to be spending. Health insurance, we estimated 15%, again, trying to be conservative. And just trying to see if we did nothing to manage or massage the budget, what would we look like over the coming years? We also have debt service payments and other fixed items and contractual things we have to pay. So we wanted to, again, just try to see, are there any like big rocks coming down the road that we need to plan for? Are we gonna see any big structural deficits, you know, if we keep going the way that we're going? And I think if we arrow down a little bit, maybe it's not on this one, it's the revenue one, you can see where, you know, our tax levy is gonna end up being a large percentage going forward if we don't manage all of those elements that go into the budget.
And so when Kathy and I were looking at this, it was really obvious that one of the single largest drivers is that 15% anticipated increase in healthcare costs. And so if it happens to go outside of that, which we don't anticipate, that would be the real struggle. And so really budgeting or forecasting for the worst case scenario is critical as we start to look forward.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? When you project forward in the future, do you also project an increase in assessments? You know, because things are getting more and more expensive, right, and that includes homes.
It does. Our tax levies are balancing line item, so I don't necessarily calculate what I think our rates are gonna do, because that's impacted by equalization rates and taxable assessed value, but we do try to estimate what the levy is gonna look like. We have more assessed value to spread it over, and we can contain costs. And luckily, we have had increases in our brick and mortar every year, in our numbers that we get from the state. So we've been able to absorb some of those increases just by the mere fact that we do have a growing tax base in Fulton Park.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
So again, this is a framework and a presentation you'll see grow with detail over time. And so I won't spend an extensive amount of time on each and every slide, but just give you an outline. As I mentioned in the previous presentation, our work is about sustaining programming for our students and making sure that our budget takes into consideration information and what we expect to happen for our school community. There's a link to the budget calendar because this is a document that will be used over and over again and ultimately live in our budget book. So it'll have all the necessary references for us moving forward. Our work is to actualize our mission, and as I mentioned before, our budget is one of the primary drivers of us being able to do that, and so you will see that outlined in how we continue to support our engagement, innovation, cultural competence, global collaboration, collective work and responsibility through our Shen learning framework and through our standard budget questions that we ask as we go through the budget process. Fiscal responsibility is one of our primary goals as a district, and it is the responsibility of all staff members to make sure that we are maximizing our resources to provide the program that we expect for our students. And our Shen learning framework drives everything that we do. I'm going to go to the graphic because it shows our students are centered in the middle of our curriculum instruction and assessment, and almost what exists outside of here is the framework of operations that must happen in an efficient and effective way in order for students to arrive to school, be available for learning, and to be able to take advantage of the resources that we place there. It has key questions that all districts consider, but we really look at the interconnectedness of curriculum instruction and assessment, how students learn, what they're learning, and how well they're learning it. And it allows for a focus for not only our professional learning and our curriculum development, but what our instructional delivery models look like in our classrooms every day, and our budget supports that with the staff that we're able to put in place to deliver that. It provides for very clear expectations for the entire system as we move forward in supporting the students in the center of our why, and it brings our teachers together consistently across the K-12 continuum to ensure that we're building for the robust education we need for our students. So you've heard tonight already about some of the challenges that will drive our budget, primarily our rate adjustments for health insurance and pension costs, limited foundation aid changes right now on the Governors for Aid Run, which we know will evolve over the course of the next few months as the legislature gets involved, is currently at a 1%, which isn't a significant increase. We have potential fluctuations, I would say, in our federal funds, which include our title and special education grants that we expect from year to year, but we expect them to be funded for current direction. Our tax growth factor has remained flat, and the tax growth factor is a key factor in determining what our maximum tax cap can be. And we will, as we've discussed many times, need increased staffing and resources for ATRIA, which is why Kathy's point is really key, how we've looked over the last 3 years as we got ready for bringing ATRIA on board, how we maximize our funding in each and every budget and not have it live just in next year's budget. Our reality will always be academic and operational excellence, the continued expansion and sustaining of opportunities for our students K through 12, and always being positioned for unanticipated needs. We talked about planning always for worst case scenario, so that we are in position to never have surprises and sustain what we need. We are coming through in a strong fiscal position for 25-26 to build our 26-27 budget, even with these challenges in place. We will continue, as mentioned before, to maximize retirements, vacancies, and attrition, and to look at enrollment patterns, even as we anticipate modest enrollment increase for kindergarten. One component of our Governor's Aid Run is our kindergarten aid, our kindergarten transition aid. That will be a significant source of funding that we will need to utilize for ATRIA. However, we already have half-day kindergarten, so that aid is impacted by the number of students that will move from half-day to full-day, and so we wait with bated breath for those final numbers as well. So we have our mandated contractual cost impacts, we have our instructional investments that we talked about, where equity and outcomes, program expansion, enrollment, And as you all remember from our earlier conversation, the implications of anything that we need to do to support our special education programming as a result of our special education program review and action planning that is occurring. We maintain a posture of making sure that we continue to look at safety, cybersecurity, technology, and planning effectively for obsolescence, and making sure that we have maximized the usage of our technology and seek out efficiency upgrades when necessary. We continue to navigate planning for bus electrification while hoping that things will become manageable for districts to take on some component of that, which is part of our conversation with our legislatures. And we are continuing to look at our equipment and staffing and all the resources that will be needed for a TRIA, while also managing our $85 million capital project. And so the next few slides is where the magic will happen over the next couple of weeks as we look really closely at budget requests and all the factors that were just introduced to determine what instructional retirements we'll be able to take advantage of, and then what step replacements we will need to do for positions at each level. We will look at making sure that we are meeting the needs of all learners in our system, specifically in special education, ENL, academic intervention supports, and mental health supports, those students who may need just a little bit more to experience the success we expect. We will have enrollment-driven demands. We look at our enrollment, like we said, K through 12, but specifically at the TRIA and elementaries, we look at sections that will need to be added or adjusted. Electives, we've taken a look at already and what the impact would be for any new coursework recommended coming out of IPAC. Elementary STEM enrichment is something I'll speak probably more in detail about as we move forward, but this is something, a shift in position that came out of contract negotiations with STA last year, where our ELA teachers will move from ELA teachers to be enrichment specialists and be able to focus on the most needed subject at that time at the elementary level, providing us with flexibility, and that will require some resources, not in terms of staffing, because we'll be able to use existing staffing, but in terms of curriculum materials. We are undergoing a middle school schedule review, just looking at opportunities to maximize middle school scheduling and make sure students' needs are being met, and we'll consider implications from there. Again, CTE and college-bearing courses from our IPAC process, and what opportunities we may be able to have to enhance modified or unified sports. We've talked at length about our mascot selection process, and that is underway. I believe focus groups are the next layer of that process, and when they presented their timeline, they talked about the implications of cost potentially for selecting a mascot and what will need to go along with the branding of that. We always look at our operations and maintenance equipment, again along the lines of usage and obsolescence planning, any security enhancements, and anything else that is revealed through a deep review of the budget request provided by our leaders. And so what we ultimately will end up with is you'll be able to see where we were last year in terms of our budget, and then what additions we need to make from an operational standpoint, a strategic programmatic standpoint, and we're going to pull out separately the impact of cost for a TRIA. And then we will be able to propose to you a budget for 26-27, as well as what that projected increase will be. And then finally, these are just some reference points that I think are helpful for us to keep in mind. On average, our state aid is roughly 30%, and our tax levy is 66%, but overall we say our general fund contributes about 70% of our budget. We talked about our tax-based growth factor and how that factors into our tax cap. And on average, we've had a 2.47% tax levy that we've gone out to the public with, but you'll remember last year we got pretty close to our tax cap, which was more in the closer to this range here. Then we use our true tax rate, our full value growth, and our tax assessed value to determine what the actual impact on our taxpayers will be in terms of what they will see when they open up their tax bill. So these are all numbers that we keep in play and at the front of our conversations while we're navigating the development of our budget. And then finally, this graphic I think is incredibly important, and it comes out at budget time really intentionally. It's the questions we consistently ask ourselves throughout this process. Our job is to be responsive to our diverse learners. Our job is to make sure that the classroom experience is relevant and feels inclusive to all who will walk through our hallways. And our job is to make sure that we remain axiomatic with the expectation that education is supposed to be a good that improves the lives of our students. And how does our budget show that to our public, to our staff, our students, and our community? And that concludes all the budget topics for this evening, but more to come over the next few weeks.
Questions? Comments? Laura, one.
Thank you. So I have one, oh, I think I'm keep talking. So this is really important, talking about ATRIA. So one of the things that we have to do is make a resolution to change the grade configurations for our schools. So all of our elementary schools, with the exception of Tasago, will no longer have kindergarten students. They will be grades 1 through 5. Tasago will maintain the MOVE program, and so the state has recommended that we keep that designation as K through 5. So this is a resolution to move all of our elementary schools, with the exception of Tasago, with the MOVE program to grades 1 through 5, and to officially request that ATRIA be opened as its own school serving kindergarten students. That will generate the BEDS code and all the accountability metrics that go along with that. And so we ask the board to consider this resolution that we will include in our application through the public school registration process. Any questions on that? It's getting real.
This is something that the state requires.
State requires by March 1st of every year, if you're going to do any grade configuration changes or open a new school, that information is provided to them and completed. And actually, we had to start back in almost December, I think, actually, like almost 3 months before that, to say we anticipate opening a school so they would release the forms to us.
We don't have to add the high school in there or anything? I mean, because it just seems like.
Nope.
You're not federal. Okay, thank you.
Nope, just the schools that will be impacted for change. And so you'll see that as an action item for you as well. Okay. And then Ms. Carmen is unable to be here this evening, and so I will just provide a brief overview of the first reading of policies. Then I'll be back for second reading. And so the policy committee met in January to review, again, largely our focus this year is reviewing our HR policies, which is helpful because those are highly regulated and law-based policies, so there typically isn't too much shift in terms of the policy discussion, but really just developing our understanding of the shifts that have happened in regulation and laws. So you'll see for certified personnel, it's just updating a link to the profile of an employee. Credentials and qualifications of certified staff, digital certification platforms, and the shift in highly qualified teachers definition. Updated the incidental teaching to reflect the move from No Child Left Behind language to ESOL language. Probationary and tenured employees certified. We updated this policy to just include certified staff so that it's consistent and clear. And then discipline proceedings, just minor updates related to name changes. And then you'll see no substantive changes for the Board of Education relatives policy. Again, instructional substitutes and student teachers, really minor updates to reflect our current practice and making sure that the regulation and policy language match. We try to make sure that whatever is in policy repeats in terms of opening in regulation, and that guide is clear. And then these are reviewed as attached to that policy for information only. And then we did have an extensive conversation about the comprehensive student attendance and absence to review when we request a note from families for extended periods of absence to support our intervention in support of students who are out for 3 or more days. And as a result of reviewing that policy, we also quickly take a look back through our forms and regulations to make sure any shifts and changes we make are reflected there as well. Any questions for policy? Okay, so I'll turn over to the consent items.
Okay. So I have to look, looks like full bill, not, full bill lines what we got here, so let's go with it. Okay, first consent items, treasurer's report, can I get a motion? Naomi's first, Mary Colleen a second, any comments or questions? All in favor? Motion passes, thank you. Minutes, January 13th, 2026 and January 27th, 2026. Do I have a motion? Treasurer's first. Teresa second. Oh my God. Any comments on? Okay, all in favor? Motion passes. Moving into business items, good. Everybody's been looking at this, I'm sure. Approval of the 26-27 school calendar. Can I get a motion? Naomi's first, Andrea's second. Any comments?
Nothing's changed since the last meeting.
All in favor? Motion passes. Number 2, approval of the resolution Dr. Wilson Turner went over with us tonight, of the resolution for the elementary schools. Can I get a motion? Andrea's first. Naomi was second. Any comments? Congratulations, here we go, it's real, all that good stuff, show the word cloud. Okay, all in favor? Motion passes. Number 3. The bids, good, okay. Bids 3, transportation bus ports, transportation fluids, diesel fuel, and unleaded gasoline rescind bid reward. Can I get a motion? Petra's first, Teresa's second. Any comments?
I just had a question. Is it typical that our general counsel reviews the bids? Because the fuel bid, Honeywell reviewed.
That was a re-award.
It was a reward.
That was a re-award.
The re-award, is that what
Chris
they
did
did?
that? Chris reviewed,
Yes.
right?
Is that typical?
We do work with them as necessary for those bid awards, but I can ask Kathy if there's anything out of the ordinary as to why
Oh, okay.
you saw that, but I don't
So it
think
is-
so.
It was only because they, pulled their original bid, so we had to go back and award it to the second lowest bidder.
Oh, okay.
They pulled it after we awarded it, and so,
Yes.
yeah, that gets complicated.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, can I get a motion?
You did, you got
I
the
did.
first and second.
I get a second, any, all in favor? Motion passes. Okay, going into contracts. Oh, good, all right. Special education, living resources. Can I get a motion? Andrew's first. Naomi's second. Any comments? Mr. Ford. All in favor? Motion passes. 5, disposal of buses. Yes? Okay, disposal of buses. We do auction, scrap, and we go different avenues with them, so pretty clear. Can I get a motion? Mary Colleen is first. Patrice second. Any comments?
Are we going to get like I know I asked this before, we can get a statement that says what,
What actually happened with each one?
yeah, and if we get money out of it at all, you know, that goes in our coffers.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor? Motion passes. Number 6 is Narek. Okay, so the cash purchase up front. Can I get a motion? Naomi's first. Can I get a second? Andrew's. Any comments? It's always a free time. All in favor? Motion passes. Okay, Gemini, the AI license, 19,000. Brent, 100. Can I get a motion? Mary Colleen is first, Petra is second. Any comments? All in favor? Motion passes. And then the installment purchases. Yeah, for the iPads. Can I get a motion? Patrice is first. Can I get a second? Andrea second. Any comments? All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Scholarships and local grant donations. Gratitude. Great. Can I get a motion? Mary Colleen is first, Naomi is second. Any comments? Again, with gratitude. All in favor? Motion passes. Great. And then I saw Bree, yes, I did. Acceptance of special education placements. Ms. Hazelton makes her way up.
Good evening. I present for your approval the special education placement recommendations.
Any comments? Can I get a motion? Andrew's first. Naomi is second. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Ms. Hazelton. Ms. Scalia? for
Good evening. I have
staffing.
the staffing agenda in front of you tonight for approval. I would like to just point out our retirements with appreciation. We have 3 of them for tonight. One of them is Carrie Peverly, who is an academic administrator here within the district and has been here for 22 years. Carrie will plan to come to our board meeting later in the spring, where we have a lot of the retirees come. She wasn't able to make it tonight. Debbie Alexander at 21 years and Jill Romeo at 15 years, for a total of 58 years of service to the district.
Tremendous. Huge thank you, and kicking and screaming on very.
Oh, indeed.
Tough one. You don't find that level, and it's hard to find math teachers, science, STEM, I mean, that whole gambit, so much appreciation for all of them. Okay, can I get a motion? Andrew's first. Was that up, Petra second? All in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, second reading.
And then second reading of policies, I won't go through in detail as they were presented for first reading, and no significant changes from that conversation. Any questions?
Can I get a motion? Andrew's first. Mary Colleen a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. All right. And then, do we have any further public comments tonight? Nothing came in, right, Big? Okay. So we're gonna go to the good of the order. I did want to take a second to congratulate, out of, I saw in the Friday Bulletin today, 2 national board certified teachers, right? One being Rock Travis from the middle school, our tech teacher. He's hilarious. And Stephanie Haney, high school English teacher. So quite an accomplishment for both of them. I think outstanding, and we send board sends our huge congratulations to them. Dr. Wilson Turner noted, Barbara's still here, that this winter has not been lost on anybody. And every day, you look out and traveling, daughter said, why is it snowing again today? She had to travel late them on. So big thank you. You did it. I'm not going to belabor it, but Barb, thanks, and the team for keeping us open, keeping us going, getting the kids to school, back from school. Big thank you to Barb and Al and our new transportation director, right? Learning the ropes, so. Mr. Poxitone, Phil there, didn't do so well for us.
It's always 6 more weeks of winter time.
Nothing
Is it not for me or is it me? But it always is.
I'm doing good with the skiing this year, though. I'm getting my skiing in. It's all good. All right, anybody else for the good of the order?
Yes,
Carla?
I'd like to just comment on the National Board Certified Teacher situation. That's an incredibly difficult situation to be in. It takes a year to finish all of the questions, all of the projects that they have to do involving parents and involving students, and take a 3-hour exam to go with it. So any teacher that gets through that, hats off. It's an amazing, amazing situation and very, very prestigious. So we're very lucky to have teachers that are nationally certified.
I was gonna say, I hope everyone has a safe and happy winter break, and I hope most people are heading somewhere south and do so very safely.
It hasn't been so warm either.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that we had teams that went to RPI to compete this last weekend, and of the 3 teams that advanced from our middle school program, 2 are advancing to national competitions. So I'll be sending that information to Ms. Glasheen. And I also want to give a shout out to the Tasago drama program, because I went to High School West this weekend right after Champs, and because one of the students that was at Champs was also in that program, and it was really well done. It has me also very excited for the coming high school musical. But Mr. Lotano does an excellent job, and so these students it's just amazing work. Costumes, everything, just really nicely done. Shout out to them. And I also wish everybody a relaxing break.
Anybody else? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
To go into executive session?
I'm gonna adjourn first and then go into executive session.
We have to be on
I'm
public.
gonna do it all in one?
Yeah.
Do I have to do that first? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then come back out and redo it, all right. So motion to go into executive session,
To discuss.
contracts.
Okay.
Can I get a motion? Andrea? Second? Patrice? All in favor? Okay. That's what we're gonna do.